IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Paytm Money. So we had a really interesting week on the network. Definitely check out some of the shows that came out there. We had interesting episodes on Cyrus Says, Advertising is Dead, Filter Coffee Podcast, Agla Station Adulthood, Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Pesa Vesa. All of these shows had some really, really cool guests on, and there were some really good episodes out there. Do check them out. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
We live in a time when we're confined in our homes and constantly finding things to consume. And for most of us, it's the content that makes us grin, smile, or laugh that's become something we turn into a whole lot more than ever. And while many creators are changing their content, mainly because of the state of things, there are some whose content has seamlessly continued being as fun as ever, without making too many changes. One such creator, whose content I'm a consistent consumer of, is Nick, and his insanely popular social channel, BioNick, which has over 3.5 million followers on YouTube, and he's just hit 1 million as well on Instagram. Now, I thought it would be fun to have almost a freewheeling chat with him about his process, how his ways of creation have evolved, and how he keeps it so real and fun all the time. And just so relatable. All this and more on this week's episode of Advertising is Dead. I'm Varun Duggirala, co-founder and content chief of The Glitch, and we'll be right back with this.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Should Ball, a show about three friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my two sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Should Ball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're with Nick. Hey Nick, how have you been? How is a creator life in lockdown been for you?
Good. Yeah, not so bad. I always feel that only boring people get bored. So I'm trying to be creative and trying to create content around whatever I've got. And basically, I've started like this. So I don't feel like, I don't have any problem going back to the basics.
And you just came back from LA just before the lockdown happened, right? I think was it a couple of weeks before that you had come back?
A couple of weeks. So yeah, I came back on Feb 1st, I guess. Yeah. Perfect time to get back because there's this friend of mine. She was also supposed to get back with me, but she kind of stayed longer. And she's still there because of lockdown.
She's going to be there for a while then.
Yeah.
So, you and I have had, I think we've only been on panels together. And every time we've been on panels together, what I've realized is that you have a very interesting way of looking at content, and there's I've always taken some learnings from your entire processes. And while I know that you've spoken about this to many people, I think it'd be interesting kind of also first start off by saying, how did you even start getting into this? Was this something you always wanted to do? Or do you always want to be a content creator, a performer of that sort?
So I'll start by saying this, guys, if you don't know, I self-invited myself on the last panel that we had together on this podcast.
Yeah.
So this is like a self-invite, why are you not calling me in the pod?
I remember that.
So yeah, it's not like I was always wanted to be a content creator because I started making YouTube videos, and that was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, sorry, because I had a channel before BioNick too. And back in the day, being a YouTuber was not a thing when I started. So being a content creator was not a thing in India, at least. In the West it was, but in India it wasn't. And I was just like fresh off bartending. I used to do bartending. I was in Goa for a year. Then I got back and I lost contact because I used to be a freelance bartender. And you know how it works with freelance, that when you're here, you get all the work. But when you're not here, they keep calling you and then you don't keep showing up, they'll find someone else.
Yeah.
So when I got back, I started working like whatever I get working. Like I started working in call centers and stuff like that. And I used to watch a lot of YouTube. I used to watch a lot of content back in the day. And at that time, YouTube was just exploding there. Like, original content creators and not like just, because in India, it was just probably movie trailers or like songs, something like that.
Yeah.
So YouTube was kind of exploding in the West, and I used to watch a lot of content, and I felt, I can do something with this. And then I started doing it, and I started enjoying the process of making content. And then after a point, I started realizing that, this is what it is. Like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And my goal was not to get like, humongous money out of it or like fame out of it. For me, it was just that if I can do this my entire life and get paid sufficient enough so that my family survives, that's it.
You said two things which I find very interesting. And this might not be the two things you would expect me to talk about. One you said was bartending, and then you said call center.
Yeah.
A little bit of history on me, way towards the end of... So I did engineering college, right? And I was a terrible student during my engineering college days. In my last year of engineering, I think everybody's done a terrible student only in that sense. Yeah. In my final year, I actually used to do a side job with Jack Daniel's whiskey, where I used to be so I used to be a promoter in bars in Bangalore. So I would go to people and I would ask them to say, here 2 dice, roll them. If you get a 3, 4 or a 7, then you can either win one Jack Daniel's pen or t-shirt or something like that.
Mm-hmm. And I remember that job too, But
those are super fun jobs to have.
It was super fun because you don't have to be there for long. You should love that job because all you have to do is go there. I used to do it for Diageo and all the brands for Diageo. Go there, be there for like maximum half an hour and then leave. But for bartending, you have to stay there like throughout the night. So you should love it when you used to get that part of the job.
And I think what was interesting was that you could actually, you would get all the contacts in the bars, right? You would get to know all the bartender, the bouncer. You would also get to see all the unique characters who come to all these places. So, and after that, whatever, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever was done, then you could just literally change your t-shirt, come back into the same place and have a drink, right? So that used to be the plan always.
Yeah. I mean, I still get off these places, like in a lot of places where, the bartenders know me. I would not name the places. It's just that at those places, no matter how much of a big celeb you are, doesn't matter. If you want a drink when like the bar is shut, I know that I can get it because I used to be a bartender, not because of who I am right now.
And then you said you went and worked in a call center. So that was literally what I did after engineering. So I actually worked in a call center. I worked for AOL's cancellations department for a few months. So so you mentioned the two things which I was like, once a full flashback happened for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we are of the same similar era. So I guess everybody did that who's in the content space right now. Or in the space that we are in, I guess everybody did that. Back in the day, the amount that we used to earn through call center was humongous.
Yeah.
And it was like life-changing amount, which you don't need like a degree to get that too.
That's true.
And also I think got stuck there.
Also, I think the interesting part about both being at a bar and working in call centers, you really get to observe how people are, right? I mean, the smaller things about how people generally are as things, that's something which you observe so much. Like I think I saw enough variety of just how different ways in which Americans are in my time in the call center.
Same here. I still remember the first ever call. I'm so sorry to cut you off.
No, say no.
I still remember the first ever call that I took on call center. There was this firm I was working called on BT. The person was British Telecom.
Yeah.
And, I was just initially they don't used to give you calls. They used to like pair it with you to someone to like them listening that if you're doing it well or no. So I was just listening and I was being told that you should start by asking like, how's your day been and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the first call that I took, there was this lady who was so sick of British Telecom. And she just explained her day, how fucked up her day was because of the internet garbage, because, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, then I had to pick up my children, and because I couldn't call her, and all that happened. And I was just listening to it, and then I was like, Achha, okay, so how was the day? That was my first ever call. She's like, I just told you, how was it? I was going by the script.
Yeah, and that is the problem. And also, but the interesting part is that, would you say that because of all these things, you also learned how to observe people, right? Because a lot of your content is built on top of just observing how people are.
Not a lot. I mean, I can say all of it, dude. All of it is because of observation. And the one thing that I realized there, because I was going by the script, is that I should not go by script. And that's why I do a lot of improv in my comedy. And we don't go by script. I only write scripts when I have to submit it to a brand. Apart from that, I can only I tell people that this is my idea. And this is how it's supposed to be. This is the joke in the end. And just improv. Let's just improv. Let's just go with the flow and do whatever you would do in this situation. That's how we work.
So what is your general process if you have to put down how do you work on an idea in general?
For instance, I get an idea and I always feel that, the surprise element, the thing that is unique in all my videos are like the twist in the end and the surprise element, the shock element is something that makes you laugh. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
So I always think about that element first and then make a story around it. For instance, I could say, let me just figure out any of the recent videos that I did. Okay, so I did a video with Dolly. She's like a creator from Delhi, and Style Khan.
Yeah.
So the video was that I'm talking to my girlfriend, Dolly. She goes like a video call and she goes for something like to drink water or whatever. And then her brother comes in the picture. So that is the situation that we created now.
Yeah.
Now I want to get out of it. So how to get out of it was my joke. So the joke was that if I see, I saw her brother in front of me and she's asking, who the fuck am I? Why are you talking to my sister? Then I acted as if it's an Instagram ad going on. So that was a joke. So I thought of that Instagram ad and then I made a story around it.
So you're saying
That's how I write.
So you work with what the final, let's say the final twist is first and then say, okay, what do you do before that? So that part you primarily improv of.
Yeah.
And you always had, you also have a set of people you work with consistently, right? In terms of your team as well. I mean, not from the initial days, but I'm saying that if you look at it right now, you do have a set of people you do bounce off stuff and do stuff with. I mean,
so when I started off, I was starting off as a new guy who doesn't know how to do stuff. I remember the time where I used to I have a lot of friends. I'm a very socialite guy. I make friends very easily. So I got a friend of mine who I borrowed a camera and a tripod. And I remember sitting on top of a refrigerator because I have to take a shot. While I was holding a tripod, on top of it, there was a camera. And then later, the guy whose tripod was there, who came and he was just trying to shoot something. And then I realized that this opens up. So
yeah.
I thought that tripod is just to keep the camera steady. and it doesn't give you height because I was just holding it. And that's when I realized I did not need to sit on top of the refrigerator. I could have just opened the tripod. So I'm just giving you a fair background of how I don't know anything about it. So I met all these people who I've met and who is my team right now. One of the best teams that I've worked with because it's the same people since the past 5 years now. So everybody I met through a process of finding people and telling them what my vision is and telling them what is going to happen. And this is how we'll work. And only if they like my vision, because at that time, no money was involved.
Yeah.
If they like what I was thinking, a lot of trial and error, a lot of people came, a lot of people went, and these are the bunch of people who stuck with, and I'm so glad that they are with me, and we all still working together. I don't want the best guy to work with me. I want a guy who was there with me from the start and who kind of believes in me to work with me. That's what I feel.
And what this whole working, if you go to the Sahil Khan piece you spoke about and the team piece, right? You've generally, if I look at a lot of your content, it involves a lot of collaboration either with other creators or someone who, I think people from across the board, right? So if you have to go back from the beginning, was that something you always wanted to do? Because like you said, you've always been a social creator. In that fact is the fact that you're always trying to find, okay, I really like this one creator. Let me just touch base with them and figure a way to collaborate with them. Has that been a way of doing things as well?
Yeah, a lot of times. So for instance, now recently I was in LA for a while. And as you know, I was there for about a month. So I went there, and for me, it's just that if I like someone, irrespective of the fact that how much followers he has, whatever it is, I've recently collaborated with someone who has 5,000 followers. But if I like someone, I reach out to them because I feel that, I want to do something with them.
Yeah.
And if they are up for it, it's amazing. If they are not, it's okay. I move on and then I find a bunch of other people.
But then does it also then make, so that's what makes it interesting also, right? Because every time if I look at your content, whenever I run through it, I think every time you collaborate with someone, it also, it for sure has your own unique style, which is there across your videos. But it's also got a nice addition of what that person brings on. And that almost makes it very fresh, even though it's got the similar style in terms of your content.
I mean, so generally what happens is I've hardly worked with someone on their script. I'm so best thing that I like about the process is writing. So I've always collaborated with a lot of people, and I told them this is what you want to do, and I always check their content and then check what is their strength and what will go really well. Like for instance, Sahil Khan being in that video is because he's huge, and I'll get scared of him. That's why he's the perfect pick. Actually. Yeah. So any guy could have met that form, but I feel like Sahil gave that extra addition because of how he looks. So, like, I've done a video with Rob. For instance, I got collaboration with, matched up with Rob. Okay. So where have you ever seen Rob without a cap?
Never.
No. So I've made a small joke in it where, me and Tushar are trying to impress a girl who likes creative things. Okay.
Yeah.
But we don't know what to make. Then Rob comes in and like, hey, I'll help you guys. And I'm like, who the fuck are you? and then we he's like, dude, me. This. He tries a lot of things. Then he wears a cap. I was like, oh my God, Rob. Like Clark Kent joke. So it's all about understanding the minute details of the other creator that you like. And that comes to you naturally if you like them. I love Rob. So I know what he does. And that's why I can write for him.
That's one thing I've actually been noticing a lot, especially during lockdown, is the fact that a lot of creators are coming together to do a lot of things. You just generally trying to create content together. I think that whole community aspect of creators has really come out a lot more during this time than, it's not like it wasn't there before, but I think it's become a stronger system right now.
No, honestly, it wasn't there before.
Okay.
If you can say it was like 10% before, now it's 100%. Like, that's how it is. And that's the difference that's what I've noticed between people from the West and like us. The difference is when I was there,
and you were there for VidCon, right?
I was there the last time I was there for VidCon. This time, I don't know if you know, I run a food truck in the US.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
Yeah. So.
Where do you run a food truck in the US?
It's in San Jose right now. It was in San Francisco, now in Sunnyvale, yeah. It's called the Feast India Company, and we serve like authentic vada pav and misal pav there.
See, this is me doing terrible research than before I have done this.
No, it's just like it's something that I've always. I was not very vocal about it. The first time I spoke about it was in the article that came out by Forbes. That's the first time I ever. We just turned one actually, and nobody knew about it in this last 1 year. I just spoke about it. So it's not your fault, dude. It's abhi just aaya.
But how did that happen? How did the food truck happen?
So the first time I was in US, I'd gone for Visit USA to promote US tourism in India.
Yeah.
And I met like a bunch of fans out there, and out of which there were a few who I kind of chilled around with later because you don't have enough friends there.
Yeah.
Right? So I was chilling with them, and I met few people. And then I always ask people that, it's generally me, like, what do you want to do? What are your plans in life and stuff like that? And they told me something about, like, they were working inside a kitchen or something. They were chefs. And they told me they want to make a food truck and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, this sounds interesting. And that's me, dude. Like, I'm very, I take a leap and then just see what, how it goes and stuff like that. Then later, the next time I went there, the food truck was already there. It's called the Feast India Company, by the way. So I named it, I designed it and all. And they made it an insane food, dude. Not even joking. Not saying because it's fine. But last year I've traveled like a lot of countries. I've been to almost the whole of Europe, Tokyo, Monaco, US. I've never had such authentic vada pav and misal pav, apart from Bombay, anywhere in the world. So if you ever go there, just please, it's on me. You would love it.
That's awesome, man.
It's doing good now.
I have family that side, so maybe I'm going to turn to them and say that whenever they can get out, that will be a good time to
lovely.
go. You very recently announced you had an interesting collaboration, which I called out. for a different reason. Little after lockdown started, for those who did not see it, there was a post that you put up where there was Dwayne Johnson standing next to you, and you announced this huge collaboration that is coming. You're going to be part of something with him. And everybody was like, wow. And I was like, I'm a huge Dwayne Johnson fan. So I looked at it and said, there is no chance this is real. I have seen this photo somewhere. Ye nahi tha is photo mein. So I was like,
Ballers ka tha na wo photo.
बहुत सही बनाया वो photo.
Arey, so many people fell for it. And you know what? The next day when I made a video about saying that it was a joke, so for that picture, say I got somewhere around 8 to 10,000 comments. And in that video, there's around 2,000 comments, 3,000 comments. So I figure that the remaining people still think that I've met him and I go to watch the movie thinking that I'll come.
But that was very cool, very well done in terms of that. And perfect time for April Fool's Day, considering also everybody was in lockdown. It was like a double dose for everyone.
Yeah, and it was a little believable because I was there for a month.
Yeah,
I put out a lot of collaboration videos also. And to just spice it up, what I did is I posted like a picture on my story saying that 2 best moments of my life.
Yeah.
On the first one, it was when I met, what is his name? Tom Hanks. Yeah. So the first picture is when I met Tom Hanks, and second picture is when I met The Rock. Okay. Dwayne Johnson. But what the interesting fact is, I've actually met Tom Hanks.
Oh.
Yeah. So
when was that? When did you end up meeting Tom Hanks?
So this was my first time in US, in New York. YouTube had taken us. And this was my first time outside India also. So we were doing this thing called Next Up in India. And it was like the second phase of Next Up where we went to US, and then almost like every country had like one creator who would come there in New York, where we were just doing the same things, like, learning how to grow and stuff like that, learning from each other. And then Tom Hanks had come to promote his movie, The Post, on YouTube space, and that's when we met him, like the pictures and all the time.
Yeah, that's
interesting guy, dude. It's insane.
That's also one thing I want to ask you, right? Because there was a time sometime back when YouTube was the go-to platform for everyone to kind of put their content out on, right? Now everyone's talking about, should I put something on? Should I start a YouTube channel? Should I, just focus on maybe Instagram? Should I also do TikTok? And obviously there's no right answer for it, but how have you seen it in terms of how you kind of look at your content for YouTube versus Instagram and other channels?
See, honestly, YouTube is like a baby because I am what I am right now because of YouTube. And YouTube is never going to die. That's what I feel. Because it's a proper search-based content where you search for something that you like. People come to YouTube searching for me. Like, they want to see me. And the other platforms, honestly, right now, if you ask me what is my favorite platform to put content, it's Instagram. Because I like this 1-minute content that I make. And it's easy to make. With YouTube, you require a certain amount of production. And it should look a certain way because I've always kept that way. And Instagram, I've always kept it that way that I shoot it with phone and stuff like that. So, I mean, right now I'm kind of enjoying Instagram more, but YouTube would always be a baby. And TikTok, I've started posting content on TikTok, but it's just like, the videos that I make here. And it's just that I don't want to miss out. I just don't want to miss out on it if it blows someday, which I think it would.
Yeah,
what are your feelings? I really want to ask about what are your feelings on TikTok?
So my thing is, I have 2 sides of my feelings. Right? One is the side which is what I do in terms of being on the agency and content side. The other is that while I've been doing the podcast, I've off late slowly started putting up videos and stuff like that. I literally started about 1 week ago. I started putting up 1 or 2 videos. And
on TikTok?
Oh, no, on Instagram right now. I just literally took the same Instagram video and I put it up on TikTok, just cut it shorter. But I don't know. So for me, TikTok is still something which is predominantly a lot more. If you are going to do stuff that is performance led, right? Either singing, dancing, or you're doing like almost that sketch kind of a thing, then it's great. But for other stuff, I still find it a little tricky as a creator because I don't know if putting it out makes sense on that. I love consuming that as mad content on TikTok. just to generally see. And it's one of those things where you can keep scrolling for hours and not stop. But for me, actually, the scary part has been YouTube, because I was like, okay, 1 second, like you said, right? On Instagram, you can make shorter stuff and move. But when it comes to YouTube, for me, for instance, like I'm doing very base level content, and I'm doing like answering people's questions as video content. So for me, okay, does that make sense as a YouTube video? Because that is just literally me talking to camera. So I haven't put anything on YouTube. I've only been putting it on Instagram. So that's where my head is at. But in general, as a platform, I think TikTok's great. I think TikTok will start competing with, I think it competes as much with YouTube as it does with Instagram, is the way I see it.
Dude, I want to ask you this, that, see, you're posting it on Instagram right now, all the content.
Yeah.
So if I want to search something that you did with Viraj, say, for instance, then what do? That's where YouTube Click comes in. You know how easy it is to find. And then if see, my first ever video on YouTube was somewhere around, I got like 1,500 views the next day, and I was so happy because this was my second channel. This is Be Unique. Okay. But I had a channel called Not So Funny. Turned out to be exactly what the name was. Not funny. Like 6 videos consolidated 800-900 views. So first video had 1,500 views. Okay. And right now, if I check that video, it has somewhere around 2.5 million views. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you are based on what, if you keep posting your content, and so you are expecting people to watch the latest content only. What do you expect? I don't get it.
So that's interesting when you say that, right? Because that's how podcasts have worked, for instance, for me, is that it's never, because none of the conversations I have are like talking about the current events, right? Like you and I, what are you talking about? Someone could listen to this now, or could listen to it a year later. So even now, there are a lot of the older episodes we've done, which actually people start listening to. I will still get a once in a while, I get an Instagram comment or something about an older video. So yeah, you make an interesting point in that sense, right? Because the worry was the duration, was that will it be engaging enough if I'm just answering questions for that to be? But I mean, also don't want to seem like a Gary Vee. I mean, Gary Vee is interesting, but I always find Gary Vee is a little extreme to kind of follow.
I mean, he's fun to be around, but it's not I like watching him once in a while, but I cannot watch him every day because he says the same thing every day.
Too much.
That's too much. That's too much of positivity. I used to like. There's this one same like Gary Vee, not like an entrepreneur, but like a motivational speaker called EP, Eric Thomas. Yeah. Eric Thomas. So I loved him. I used to. There was a time when I was so passionate about YouTube and I just wanted to do YouTube, but I couldn't survive because I come from a very low, kind of low middle class family where I had to provide. Since the time I'm teenager.
Yeah.
So I wanted to quit so bad, but then my YouTube was I just started off, I was not earning through it. So it was super difficult to go to work. Every day I used to feel that, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I cannot do this anymore because I know what, it's a feeling you get when you know what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you cannot do it. Or you're doing it, but then you're not giving your full time. At that time, I used to keep listening to all these motivational speakers every night. And get up early in the morning and start working. Abhi to matlab change ho gaya stuff. Not the same anymore. But yeah, I miss those days. I think everyone should do it. You are what you watch. If you keep watching good stuff, I've recently seen this series on Michael Jordan's life. The Last Dance. Dude,
I'm watching that too. It's a phenomenal show.
Amazing. Dude, I cannot even imagine how much inspiring I had only heard of him before this. Now I want to watch NBA because of it. That's how inspiring it is.
So I used to watch, because I remember when I was younger, my father would wake me up and early in the morning, because all the basketball matches come early in the morning, right? 6 a.m. and all, you had to wake up to watch.
What? You used to watch basketball? What kind of thing? Were you from South Bombay or something?
Not me, dude. My dad's a huge sports fan. So what my dad would do is that he would, anything which is coming on any sports channel, my dad would want to watch, right? And they used to come. So dad would wake me up for that, and I was I want to sleep. Who wants to wake up when you're in school at 5:30 in the morning to watch some sport?
And watch basketball.
But the thing is, just this, if anybody who hasn't seen this series should just see it, because the depth to which I know people who are huge basketball fans, who've been a huge, who've been followers of Jordan over the years, who are still saying there's so many things we've seeing in this show, which we never even knew about. So I think that's the good part about it. Right? And
but
even
anyone, anywhere, not just sports, I'm just saying anyone who is passionate about anything should watch this series. This shows like, if a guy wants to, like, if someone wants to be something, and if you can see the passion in him. You can see him crying when he held that trophy. Yeah. That's how much he was passionate about it. If you apply that to anything in life, I'm sure you'll succeed.
Yeah. And it's like the sheer focus and I mean all the amount of politics also around it is just something else.
Which happens everywhere, dude. So that's what I'm saying. Like, being because of the politics, and still he managed to be one of the greatest athletes in the world.
Yeah.
Against all odds. So, I feel it's very inspiring. People should watch it.
You said something a little before we start talking about the Last Dance, which is about the fact that you look for motivation to start creating content. Right? Just to push yourself to go to work and everything else. I know for a fact that a lot of people, are under lockdown, right? And because they're under lockdown, they've been sitting at home. They're trying to find ways to, get some sort of inspiration to start creating content. Because I think everybody wants to create content. But a lot of them kind of are trying to find almost that little push to get there. What would your advice be to them? What would you say? How should someone kind of start off if they want to be a creator today?
So I would say I just recently hit 1 million on Instagram and I posted a long comment or like long this on it, few lines on it. There's this one line that stood out with the one thing that everybody who's looking out to do something should focus on is that to start to kar. Just start doing it. You'll find your way.
Yeah.
Me, a simple guy, a bartender who don't know anything about anything. I live in Dombivli. I don't have access to anybody who used to do anything closer to what I did before. And I had I had no friends who were doing it. I had no connections to the people who were from the industry also. I started making videos living in Dombivli and kind of made it. Now a lot of people, and back in the day where being a YouTuber was not a thing.
Yeah.
Now we have so many examples, so many people doing it. Best of the content creators are doing it from phones also. Like, I can imagine Bhuvan, one of the biggest creator with like the most amount of numbers right now, one of the most amounts of numbers, create his content from phone. So how are you any different? दो हाथ दो पाँव सब है तुम लोगों के पास, जो भी है क्या करना है, सिर्फ फोन है, फोन तो सबके पास रहता है आजकल. Just start recording.
Correct.
And you need to find what you need to love, like what you love to make. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
I have never. It took me terribly long to be where I am right now compared to the other people who are from the same space. But I feel that I would never go. What do you call it? I've never had a writer's block in my life because I always write content which I would love to watch, and not something that I should think and research on what people would like to watch.
Yeah.
So if you're having fun doing it, then it doesn't feel like you're doing it too.
And to keep it light, right, and keep it very easy, because a lot of all your videos have very like basic insights, and like it connects to everyone because they all start. Nothing is very like, okay, this is a very specific incident. Everything is very like it's a general incident that can like everybody will get it. Sabko they'll have a point of connection to it.
Yeah, but that's me, right? That's me. That's something that I like doing, but wouldn't be same to you, applied to everybody. Like, I'm telling you to find something that you really like and you're really passionate about. For instance, if you watch NBA, make a channel on how, on NBA and now how it's not very popular in India and how cool of a game it is. I'm sure if not now, someday it will explode.
Yeah. So towards the end of every episode, right, I do this one part which is called the Humans of Advertising. I know you've recently done Humans of Bombay, but this is slightly different. This is slightly more chill.
Okay.
What are you a consumer of that people who know you will feel that, okay, I didn't know that Nick was actually interested in this. What is that one thing? What is anything?
I'm a huge fan of, okay? And like, I get their reference too. I'm a huge battle rap fan.
What are you saying?
I talk to them now. All the battle rappers, because I've got like a good following and a blue tick, right? So they respond to me because I'm way more popular to them. I feel so good because I've been watching battle rap since past 7 or 8 years now. And like, I'm sure you still can't get it because it's US reference. But I've been watching it for so long that I get a lot of references now. And I get who he is dissing to because I know everybody. I'm a huge fan. Nobody knows this about me.
I was very surprised to hear. Because also, like, I think battle rap is so like. I still think it's very unique. I think I got into it. I remember, even though I was a hip hop and rap fan for a long time, still am. Was when 8 Mile came out. That's the first time it became for me a much more mainstream thing to. And obviously now that Gully Boy came out and that had some parts of it. But
I'm not a huge fan. I'm not fan. I'm a huge fan of Hindi rap songs. But I've not watched a lot of battle rap in Hindi. But there's this league called King of the Dot, KOTD. It's called. It's a YouTube channel too, KOTD, which has like good battles. And like, I like all these upcomers. And, I was super excited where there's this one guy who I started watching and he made a comeback after 4 years. And I was in US at that time. I so wanted to go to the show because I was so excited for his comeback. So, that's the level of fan I am of battle rap and nobody knows this about me.
That's awesome. What can you put together in an instant?
A script. I can make a script on this conversation.
What would, do you have any recommendations? Actually, I want to ask you, who would you recommend that, you mentioned a couple of YouTubers, right? But I'm saying, if you had to recommend a couple of YouTube channels beyond yours that people should, just kind of like check out or it'd be great for them to constantly go to, what would those be?
So what I do is a lot of, like, if you know what I do, it's sketch comedy. Yeah. And I feel the best sketch comedy people in the world are Key and Peele. It's a collective. It's like a show in Comedy Central. So I highly recommend on watching those. And if you are a creator, I highly recommend that do not watch content. That's what I feel.
Why do you say that?
See, at this age of time, what I feel, I used to watch a lot of content. I've stopped now. I've started now because of lockdown, but before this, probably 3-4 years, I've not watched anything. It's because I feel there's two things that can happen if you watch content.
Yeah.
A, you will say that what the fuck is working? Like, why the fuck this video has a lot of views? Who are watching it? It's not going to help you, right?
Yeah.
And B, like if you like something, if there's some good content out there, even if you don't want to, your subconscious mind wants to imitate it because you like it so much.
Yeah.
So in both of the situations, it's not helping you out, right? What's the point of watching content then?
That's fair. Also, and it also becomes, and this is, I was talking to, I think a while back I was having a chat with Rohan as well, Joshi, and he was saying that before he wrote his special, he actually didn't watch any stand-up for a while because he didn't want to like get influenced by what somebody else is putting out. So it's similar kind of process.
Exactly. It's exactly the same. And it helps you a lot thinking. I think about it in a way where think about how content was made when Google was not there.
Yeah.
That's how you should think about it. If you see all my videos, like, me and you going out, eating vada pav. Whoever eats the vada pav first tends to pay first. It's a real life situation, right? Whoever eats, when you're out with someone eating, whoever eats it first tends to pay because uska haath free ho gaya and he pays. That's a normal life situation, right? You go, I made a video on it. You go out somewhere and go to buy something at a shop. And he says, when you ask him kitna ho gaya, he says, 54. I don't know what 54 is. Right? Then you try to add something up. You took one more thing, he said, kitna ho gaya? 68. I'm like, dude, this has happened to me because I don't know any numbers. That's my content. So it can't be, like, my content is not influenced by anything. It's just me writing what I've observed. I go out a lot. I talk to a lot of people. These are all observational comedy.
what would you say to brands who want to work with creators, right? Because a lot of times I think it's, and although brands have learned a lot, I think, and from obviously from your perspective, what do brands need to keep in mind when working with creators like you or in creators in general?
I mean, and now a lot of people have learned. I remember the times where we made the brand understand what is marketing and how do you market in digital. And like 5 years ago, YouTube used to send us, there used to be a blind date sessions with brands, and we should make them understand how this is more better than like your traditional format of ads. But now they've learned a lot. But all I have to tell them is that understand you are not making an ad. Okay. If you are collaborating with any creator, make sure, because the creator knows what works best for their audience. Give that leeway to him.
Yeah.
Don't come up with your ideas. Nobody wants your ideas. If you want your idea, you can make it on your own platform. But if you come to collaborate with someone, make sure the right person to judge whether the video will work or no is the creator. You can tell me where do you want to place the brand, how do you want to place it. It's okay. You can tell me that, but don't interrupt on content on how I want to make the content. So now a lot of time what happens is I only tell brands that, see, this is your part.
Yeah.
And this is my script. I don't even send them script. I tell them this is my idea. Don't ask me what my script is. Don't ask me what I want to do in it.
Yeah.
Leave it to me. This is your part. This is how it's going to come out. That's it.
That's perfect. That's actually the best way to work also is the fact that the creator needs to be allowed to create how they would naturally create. And then the brand needs to figure out how they can almost seamlessly bring themselves into it and not necessarily, like you said, make it an ad. I think that's the best way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember telling this at a panel we were in together. My thumb rule of making a branded content is I write a content for brand. Then I take out the brand from the content and then I look at the content and ask myself, is this the video which I would still make without the brand involved in it? If the answer is yes, put the brand, it doesn't matter. I've never got like any comment saying that you are sold out or anything like that ever. So that's how I follow making brand content.
And lastly, this is a question I ask everybody, which is, why do you think advertising will not die?
Why do you think advertising will not die?
Yeah.
It's pretty ironic on the part of the name of your podcast.
Yes, exactly.
I'm a very slow learner of how advertising is working actually in this world, because I always used to think, and I know that how much people pay, a lot of people, or all these brands put this amount of money to advertise something, and that's humongous. And I always think, how do they recover? So I'm a very slow learner on this thing, but I feel it will not die because the one thing that, people would not stop consuming stuff, no matter what it is.
That's true.
No matter what it is, people will not stop consuming stuff. Like, for instance, you saw Michael Jordan's Nike scenario.
Yeah.
Have you reached that episode where...
Yeah, I have the Jordans one, yeah.
You know what he said? Jordans were supposed to... They gave him like $250,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jordan, they thought that in the span of 3 years, Nike would make somewhere around 3 million.
Yeah.
And that's affordable.
Yeah.
They made, in that only year, they made 123 million.
Exactly, right.
And now when I think about it, how much does advertising work? Yeah. I feel Nike is made because of Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I didn't even know this, that Converse was actually the main footwear for the NBA, and Converse said no for an individual one, and then Adidas said they don't have the ability to manufacture one, so it went to Nike. So think about how those guys would have felt afterward.
He didn't want to go to Nike also.
Yeah.
Imagine Jordan didn't want to meet Nike. I'm like, dude. And I guess Nike is huge because of Michael Jordan. Now if you think about it, and why advertising plays such an important role is because of this one man, upcoming athlete. He was not Michael Jordan. He was not that huge at that time, how he is right now.
Yeah.
Right? So because of this one man, if you had expected a sale of 3 million, which turned into 123 million in 1 year, I don't think advertising would die.
Thanks for doing this, man. This has been fun. This has been a nice, I think, conversations like these are also what are required right now. Because everyone's sitting at home, and the fact that your process hasn't changed. You're still creating fun content. You're still keeping us entertained and making us believe that you are doing something with Dwayne Johnson. Yeah, so
someday.
No,
I'm going to do one more podcast with you after I shoot with him, okay?
Done. We should do that. That's the deal. Please call me when you're shooting with him also, then I will come and record it with both of you there.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, yeah, it was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Even though I forced you to call me inside it. So, but yeah, thanks for having me, dude. It was fun. And to all the listeners, yeah, do just chill, be at home, relax. And to all the budding creators who want to start making content, start doing it. That's it.
Super. And that's it for this episode of Advertising is Dead.
This is the amazing story of something awesome. Once Chuck decided to start a podcast, and so he did. The end. Okay, that was a crappy story. But I've got some really cool stories over at my new show, The Origin of Things. On this podcast, I look at the stories of how brands came into being and sometimes evolved out of quite unexpected circumstances. And to make it really fun, I reveal the name of the brand and sometimes a category only at the very end. The show is 5 to 7 minutes per episode and perfect for trivia junkies and brand nerds, especially those with short attention spans. New episodes out every Wednesday on IVM Podcast app or website, or any podcast app or site that you happen to prefer. End of story. They lived happily ever after.
Hi, I'm Satyajit.
Hi, I'm Racheta.
We are from the Open Library Project and we host a podcast called Paperback.
Paperback is a podcast where we engage with stalwarts and experts from various industries, suggesting non-fiction titles that contributed to their journey in a big way.
We've had guests like Anjali Rana, Dr. Marcus Rani, Dr. Swati Lodha, Ambi Parmeswaran, Apurva Damani, and many more on our show Paperback. Find new episodes every Wednesday on IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.